Hey, Raindrops. Welcome to another episode, True Crime Thursdays. And I'm back with the legal expert, Ebony K. Williams.
Hello, Carlos the King. How are you?
How are you doing? We have so much to catch up on. This is
Yes.
what is it, week 3 or 4 of the trial? I guess
Oh,
so.
honey. Quantro.
4.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already starting off explosive. So I wanted to first start off with a friend of Cassie's named Brianna. I hope I get the last name right. Bogalin.
And I think they call her Bama, maybe, or Bana. I think they call her Bana.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So she had a testimony, and what she discussed was a very chilling encounter with Sean Diddy Combs, as we are all understanding now about this federal sex trafficking trial. But can
Mm-hmm.
we talk about her testimony? Because she has alleged that Puffy allegedly burst into Cassie's home and dangled her over a 17th story balcony. Ebony, what is going on with this? Because it sounds like a scene straight out of the Five Heartbeats.
It's Five Heartbeats, Goodfellas, The Godfather, and I think that's why we're hearing the testimony, actually, because it bolsters the prosecution's argument and um, their need, really, Carlos, to continue to frame him and paint him as a mafia godlike figure. And when you start hearing about people being dangled off of buildings 17 stories in the air, that starts to correlate, because let's go back to, like you said, we're week 4 now. Let's go back to week 1. Week 1, it was a lot of Cassie. It was a lot of watching that horrific video where he's dragging, kicking, and beating Cassie. But that was, many were saying domestic violence, domestic violence, domestic violence. And many, Carlos, were having a very difficult time connecting essentially a woman beater, if we will, to a crime boss, right? Which is where we're going when we're talking about RICO, racketeering. And those are the charges. So what we're seeing, I believe the prosecution take 4 weeks to slowly complete the canvases, if you will, as to the escalation of Sean Combs' criminal activity. And so, as you said, we hear her testifying to being dangled off the 17-story foot balcony. We hear her saying that he said, like, you know what the F you did, you know what the F you did, and was screaming that at her. Prosecutors asked her how long this lasted, this attack. She says about 15 seconds, but she concedes that she was heavily using drugs at the time, Carlos, and, thus her memory was foggy. We were, I should say the jurors were presented with other evidence showing her injuries. So there were severe, she went to she sought medical attention. We know she saw a chiropractor. We know she had a neck brace, but also, injuries to her neck and back area that were fairly severe. So, she definitely was able to tell that story of, he tried to kill me. I felt my life was in danger. He was screaming at me. He threatened my life. And that compounds this narrative of Sean Combs as somebody who made people systematically, and that systematic piece is very important, Carlos. It cannot be one-off instances. This has to, at some point, be person after person after person after person that existed in this broader orbit, whether they be employees of Combs Enterprises or Bad Boy or surrounding players, right? So she would be, as Cassie's best friend, a surrounding player who was at the mercy and deathly afraid for her life because of the threats and physical violence of Sean Combs.
So I wanted to ask you this. When she testified that she was heavily drugged during that time, does that affect the jury's sort of perception of whether or not her testimony is valuable? Because admitting you were drugged up could implicate anyone as their memory being clouded, or not really grasping exactly what happened. Are you hallucinating? Did you make this up? So admitting that on a witness stand, does it do damage to her credibility?
I think it does, Carlos. And I think it's fair that jurors will question it to some degree. And some will maybe even dismiss it entirely, right? So we saw one of Sean Combs's Diddy's defense lawyer, Nicole Westmoreland, who we haven't seen, and this is the Black woman who was the last added to the defense team. We haven't seen her, Carlos, since she did that very aggressive cross-examination to Don Richard early in the trial. So now we're seeing her again, and she goes all the way in on this best friend of Cassie's, you know, like you said, really bringing up and hammering the point of, well, you were, you know, on severe drugs at this time. Your memory had to be in question. And like you said, she admits on the stand, the witness, I'm not sure. And she says, I'm not sure because of the drugs. So there is only fairness in the jurors questioning her credibility, her recollection, and just how trustworthy, how much stock can they put in the believability of her testimony because of these admitted challenges around her cognitive capacity at the time due to the drug use. Now, on at closing arguments, I could expect the prosecution to address this. That would be their last opportunity to, Carlos, and maybe say something like this. As you guys deliberate, some of you might have questions about the testimony you heard from Cassie's best friend that was hung over the 17th floor balcony at the hands of Sean Combs. And while maybe some of that's fair to question because of her drug use, consider that some of that drug use was by force because of Sean Combs, because he insisted upon his entire world and orbit and everybody in it partaking in the Molly, the ecstasy, all the drugs that y'all saw confiscated from Sean Combs' homes in Miami and LA and New York in those photographs taken by Homeland Security. See, so now that's kind of how you would have to, that's the argument I'm saying that the prosecution could make to try to balance that skepticism that jurors might have about her credibility.
And what also is fascinating is when Cassie had her lawsuit, she did ask excuse me, Brianna, who goes by Banna, to be a part of the lawsuit. She declined to be a part of it. She also is suing Diddy as well. That was also revealed too, that she feels like her lawsuit is based on what she endured allegedly, and that she did try to keep everything private. But like you said, with the defense attorney, Nicole Westmoreland, she did press Banna on the stand and was really just poking holes in her story. Yes. So the fact that she declined to be a part of Cassie's lawsuit being mentioned in it, has her own lawsuit with Puff, and now did not do what other people are doing, which is going under the alias Jane Doe. Why do you think all of a sudden she feels the need to put herself out there?
Well, so a few things could be going on here, Carlos. Number one, you're naming it, right? She was asked by her best friend Cassie, can I name you specifically in my lawsuit? She refused that. And one would have to think it could be obviously fear, protection. Yes. Wanting to maintain some level of anonymity. That's one argument. Another is she wanted to preserve her own claim, right? She wanted to preserve her own ability to name herself for the first time in her own lawsuit, her own civil litigation. I believe it's $10 million demand against Sean Combs for what she alleges was a very vicious, terrible, violent act done by him. Personally, you know, as an attorney, Carlos, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at an individual wanting to preserve their own claim. Now, if you're asking from a jury perspective, does it look self-serving? Does it look like now could we be saying things or creating narrative to serve a fiscal interest and get some money, a money grab? That's certainly what defense lawyer Nicole Westmoreland was trying to insinuate, right? That's going to be for the jury to decide. Did they find her believable on that stand? Did they feel that her and Cassie's stories were corroborative enough versus not sounding, also as Nicole Westmoreland tried to insinuate, that they got in cahoots, as we say, you know, in the culture, got in cahoots and put these stories together and fabricated them together. As some might say, they lying together, you know. Again, that's going to be up to this 12 individual jury pool, Carlos King, to really weigh all of that out. But yes, that is one of the holes that are going to be considered. Is this simply something that now you're getting on this witness stand, and to your point, you're not being anonymous, like you are making it your business. Actually, you are intentionally, you know, one could almost say centering yourself, maybe not more so than Cassie, but certainly saying, hey, I am her, it happened to me, this is my name, this is my face, and I want to be compensated for my pain.
One of the other things she did mention is she alleged that she saw Pup throw a knife at Cassie, and then under cross-examination, the defense questioned her, how did it happen? And she said, I don't know how it happened. I just saw what I saw. So when you add these things up from, I was heavily drugged at the time this happened. He did, you know, hold me over a balcony on the 17th floor. He bum rushed through Cass's apartment looking for her. There was something about being locked in the bathroom. And now she is saying that she saw him throw a knife at her. And when they're asking all of these questions, it does appear what they're trying to do, and I want to get your thoughts on it, is constantly poke holes at this story, because are they just trying to really make sure that the jury really looks at her as somebody that is just questionable?
It's to be dismissed. Yes, that is really the main job. Let me be very clear here, Carlos, of criminal defense lawyers. And I say this as somebody who, for the vast majority of my legal career, that's what I did. I was a criminal defense lawyer. And my job, and I always would tell this to my clients and anybody that would ask, I don't undo crimes. I don't undo crimes, okay? So if something was done, it can't be undone by me. But my job is to hold the prosecution accountable for doing their job. I will make them prove my client's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And one of the best ways for me to do my job, Carlos, as a defense lawyer, is to make sure that every witness they put in front of the jury or judge to prove their case is not believable. To do what you just said, to poke holes. Sometimes they're big holes, sometimes they're small holes, sometimes it takes a long time to get it. Sometimes we can go straight to the heart of it. But either way, whatever the methodology, to consistently undermine the believability of the prosecution's case and their witnesses and all their evidence. And that is what a successful defense lawyer does. That is the job. You know, it's not everybody doesn't like it. Doesn't make us the most fan favorite of them all, but that is the job. So when we see Nicole Westmoreland and all these other defense lawyers, Diddy has 7, 8 lawyers on this team. Okay. This is just, that's massive. Okay. You know, that's dream team level, OJ style, right? This is an extraordinary investment he's made in his criminal defense here, as well he should. His life is on the line, you know, life and prison he's facing. So yes, that is absolutely, without a doubt, Carlos King, what Nicole is doing and every defense lawyer is doing. They are trying to make this jury go back to that deliberation room at the end of this thing and say, I'm so confused. Even if you just get them to a point of confusion, they don't have to believe the young lady is a flat out liar. You don't have to go that far. If you just get the jurors so confused, I don't know if she's coming or going. She doesn't even know if she remembers it. She only knows that it happened, but she can't tell us how. That's called reasonable doubt. That's called, I think he might have, but I can't get to the burden, the high prosecutorial burden, Carlos, of beyond a reasonable doubt. That's exactly what reason. You want to know what reasonable doubt looks like? It looks like a witness that says, I can't tell you how it happened. I just know it happened. And then you might have a jury that says, I dismiss, and the judge will give them instruction, Carlos. You better believe it. Before those 12 jurors go into their deliberation room at the end of closing arguments by both sides, they're going to get, and I'm hearing that so far these jury instructions are 100 and some odd pages, like 120 plus pages, which is very out of the ordinary. Okay, extraordinarily so, even for a case of this magnitude. And one of those instructions is going to say something like this, Carlos. The judge is going to say, hey, jurors, When you go in that room, I want you to consider every witness, every piece of evidence. You get to do the following. You can believe some of it, you can believe all of it, or you get to believe none of it. And they're going to go witness by witness by witness, photo, tape, each piece of evidence, Carlos, and they're going to go into those three. Do I believe some of this, none of this, or all of it? And that's how they're going to get to a verdict.
Ebony, this is so fascinating. So today, it was revealed.
This is so good. You're making me just want to go all the way back to law school, honey. This is just
no. You make me want to be. No, Ebony, you make me want to be like Kim Kardashian and get my law degree.
Yeah, honey, you can be under my tutelage, honey. Yeah, we'll do it together. Yeah, I'll just paperwork on the wall. Let's do something with it. Yes.
I am fascinated by this. I'm really fascinated by all of this legal stuff going on because so today, Ebony K. Williams, the defense, what people are saying is the defense secured a gotcha moment with Vanna because the incident that she alleged happened where he hung her over the balcony. She said that happened September 26th, and the defense attorney, Nicole, said that on September 26th, Mr. Combs was in New York at the Boys and Girls Club benefit. And then she asked Nicole, you agree that one person can be in two places at the same time? With Vanna responded, in theory, yes. Because the balcony incident happened in Los Angeles. Right. So the date is also wrong as we're figuring things out.
Yeah. And that's, listen, first of all, no witness is perfect. This is also something the prosecution is going to have to hammer at closing, right? These are human beings and they are allowed to make mistakes. But I will say, this is the type of shit, though, Carlos, that the prosecution was supposed to get real tight in prepping their witness. She's their witness. She's a witness for the government. She's a witness for the United States of America, v. Sean Combs. And part of their job is to sit each witness down and for hours, sometimes days, go over this kind of shit. Go over the timeline. Go over the location. Make sure. Now, they can't put words in their mouth, but they should absolutely, to the best of their ability, try to get in front of that type of gotcha moment. Because even if it was an honest, innocent mistake, which very well it could be, it doesn't look good to the jury when you're asking them to believe and send a man to prison for the rest of his life on the basis of what these witnesses are testifying to, and you get up there and you get the day wrong, and you get the order of events wrong, and you get the sequence wrong. See, now that's that reasonable doubt I spoke about a minute ago.
Yeah. So speaking of the jury, the judge today, Ebony, admonishes Diddy for attempts to connect to the jury. So Judge Seb, I'm gonna get this wrong probably. Judge Seb Romanian.
Oh,
if I got that right.
It's Subaranian.
Subaranian. Thank you, Ebony.
Yeah. It's like Subaru. That's how I remember it. You remember Subarus?
Yes, of course. I'm from Detroit.
That's a trustworthy car, honey. You got to be trustworthy to drive a Subaru. Go ahead.
I know. That's why I'm like, Ebony, correct me if I got the name wrong, child.
Yeah.
So the judge told the lawyers today that he saw Diddy look at the jury twice, nodding vigorously during the cross-examination of Vanna. The judge said that Diddy's behavior was absolutely unacceptable and cannot happen again. He ended it sternly, Ebony, by saying there should be no efforts whatsoever to have an interaction with this jury. Now, obviously, what Puff is known for is to be this very charming individual who knows how to connect to an audience, right? So do you think, just based on his charisma, that him looking dead set at the 12-person jury, nodding to them under the cross-examination of Vanna, is his way of trying to use his celebrity charm to sway the jurors the way he tried to sway the public, allegedly?
Okay, so the short answer is yes, right? So the short answer is yes. Do I believe Sean Combs is sitting at that defense table and in his own mind, if nowhere else, is still believing I'm that dude? I'm still the guy that created a $1 billion brand, convincing the world, not just Black folks, but the world globally, Ashton Kutcher to Paris Hilton to Donald Trump to Oprah to everybody, that ghetto is fabulous. That guy that was able to Diddy bop his way to a $1 billion empire. Do I believe he still thinks he is capable of the highest art of persuasion? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I will go further with you, Carlos King. I believe he believes that so emphatically still that we might see him take this witness stand as in his own defense. I think we might. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think that is of legal wisdom. I don't think he serves himself any favors by doing that. I think all 8 of his lawyers are going to say, stand down, Mr. Combs. You are paying us over $10 million to save you from yourself. Sit down, trust that we did our job poking the holes, and that's enough to get us the not guilty verdict. That's what they're going to say, and they're right to say it. But what I need you and the raindrops to know, Carlos, is us as lawyers can say and persuade and do all that shit. The ultimate decision of whether or not a defendant takes the stand is the defendant's and the defendant's only. This is constitutional. This is constitutional. So therefore, if Sean Combs feels he's got the swag, charisma, I know what y'all saw on that tape, but let me tell you, that's not me. And if he feels he can convincingly sell it, he very well might get his ass on that stand. And it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No. I was just gonna say, so interesting because I remember being in high school watching the OJ Simpson trial, and obviously prior to OJ Simpson being accused of murdering his then ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson.
And Ron.
I'm sorry, and Ronald Goldman. I'm sorry about that as well. OJ Simpson, prior to these allegations, was known as, the boy next door, very charming, very likable.
The guy from Naked Gun films, fine as all get out, by the way. I didn't even appreciate how fine OJ was till after the fact, child. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I think everybody was like, oh, he's kind of handsome.
Yeah.
But what was so interesting about it is the fact that you have this charming individual, the king of celebrity, the king of like football. Everybody loved OJ. And I remember, now that you're bringing up Puff and his behavior that we found out happened today, looking at the juror, I remember distinctly OJ Simpson kept his head down and all he did was write notes on his legal pad, but he never once even acknowledged the juror, even looked. I just remember him, Ebony, not even looking at the witnesses. And obviously, Johnny Cochran, may he rest in peace, is this legend who probably did everything you're saying, like, whatever you do, let us do our job and you keep quiet. And obviously, he was found not guilty. So I do agree with you that based on my assumption of who Puff is, because when Cassie did file the lawsuit, prior to her filing a lawsuit, she did try to settle for X amount of dollars. I believe at the time was $30 million, a number she said she just made up out of thin air. He pretty much said, I'm not paying you and do what you're going to do.
He called her bluff. Yeah, so that indicates that same ideology. But here's the interesting thing. I love that you brought up the OJ, because I think there's a lot we can draw in comparison and contrast. Here's what's interesting. And, I also do a show with Harvey Levin and the good people at TMZ. So we talked about this yesterday, and Harvey made a good point because, he was covering that along with Nancy and all of them in real time for Court TV in real time. Harvey said, although OJ was wise enough to listen to the wisdom and counsel of Johnny Cochran and Ron Shapiro and Robert Kardashian, may we forget, he listened to his dream team, F. Lee Bailey. Before he got that team assembled, he was dumb enough to take his dumb ass and sit down and talk to LAPD without counsel. So remember before the chase and all of that. So when Nicole and Ron were first murdered, right? At the very beginning, before there was even an arrest, OJ was what? A person of interest. And when you're a person of interest, you are invited to, they would like you to come down and talk to them, right? Talk to them. And when they invite you to talk to them, Carlos, they're wanting you to help them make their case. That's what they want. They want you to tell on yourself. This is why you hear me and every defense lawyer in America saying, do yourself a favor, do us as your lawyers a favor, and shut the fuck up. That's the best thing you can do as a defendant, no matter guilty or innocent. Shut up. Shut up. Shutting up is cheap and free, and it's very important that you do it. Okay. I don't care anything from a DUI stop to a custody case to murder to racketeering. Shut up. If they got the evidence, let them prove it and let them make their case, and we'll have our day in court. But you sitting down and talking to them because you think you can frame your story and save yourself is the definition, Carlos King, of a fool's errand. So while you're right, OJ had some act right by the time he got to trial and set his ass down and put his head down and did like he was supposed to do. Before that, he absolutely, because we saw the tapes of OJ sitting in the interrogation room with detectives and officers from LAPD doing nothing but making everything worse. So they both definitely have that persona. I think the difference, and I think there's two differences. Number one, I think the stakes for OJ were even higher because it was double murder, literally, right? And then the other thing is, I think OJ, I'm just going to say it. I do think OJ had more reverence for his lawyers. I think he had more reverence for his counsel. Now, again, Puff very well might not testify, Carlos. And again, for his sake, I hope he doesn't. But I don't know if Sean Combs looks at his legal team in the same reverence as OJ looked at his legal team. And don't forget, OJ has had Johnny Cochran at his defense table before in the Shine trial. Well, not the Shine trial, but in the New York club shooting case.
Yes.
So he knows like what the top of it looks like, and I don't know if he feels that same level of deference to these current lawyers, but we'll see.
That is so interesting. I completely forgot about the nightclub shooting in New York City when Diddy Shine, the rapper now turned, I believe. Thank you, politician. And
that's so fine. I didn't realize how fine Shine was till more recently. I just go ahead, Carlos. I'm sorry.
No, because you and I had our hit in the books.
Yeah, honey. Yeah. Okay.
That's why we're the scholars we are
today.
I'm
just still looking up at 40, like everybody is fine as hell. Anyways, go ahead.
We were focused on
too much reading, honey. Too much reading. Distracting.
And now we read. But all that to say, what I completely forgot about, this isn't Puff's first rodeo being a part of a trial. I completely forgot about that. And you're right, Johnny Cochran did represent him in that trial.
Honey, the one and the only. So yes, that's all to be considered here for how he's looking at, this. And I'm not taking anything from, Garagos, who's, I think, tangential to his case. And Garagos' daughter is a main lawyer and great lawyers. But once you've been at the table with Johnny, baby, it's a little different.
Yeah. So what was also revealed today is, Ebony, the judge has approved the fact that the freak off tapes would not be allowed as part of the defense or the testimony, the prosecution, that is not going to be shown to the jury. Why do you think that was made? And do you think the jury watching the freak offs has anything to do with this case in general?
Well, I like that the judge made the decision in the ruling. So let me start with that, because I think his decision is based off of, it's always this balance, Carlos, of what we call probative value, meaning what the lawyers are looking to prove. So we want to show this tape to prove what, right? To prove that he's particularly heinous, that he's particularly violent, that these participants, whether they were the sex workers or Cassie or the whoever, were operating under force, duress, or coercion. That's the probative value. And then you weigh that against what we call the prejudicial effect. How bad of a person does it make the defendant look? And that balance, it has to have more probative value than you're making this person look really bad. And clearly the judge here felt that how bad he looks in this, and probably everybody looks in this kind of tape, doesn't have enough probative value. And we can get to that probative value in maybe other areas of the trial and other pieces of evidence. So I like that it's being kept out. Personally, I already told you this when we first started covering this case, Carlos. I don't like the prosecution showing all these pictures or videos of the freak-offs. I simply don't think they have enough probative value, kind of like the judge is saying. They just kind of tell us what we already know. Everybody here has had sex, I hope. So we know kind of where that can go in terms of the baby oil, the Astroglide, the 7-inch heels, the whatever, is this particularly heinous and violent sex? Quite possibly. But I don't think that people need to see a tape. I don't think these photos do much good. They don't do enough good. Let me say that, Carlos, to proving those points to warrant just how sensationalized they are. As I think they are more distracting than valuable. Let me say it like that.
And last thing too, because I want to make sure we give all the updates so far. It was revealed that Puff paid $100,000 to the hotel employee in order to
hold cash in the paper bag.
What?
Yeah, it was in a paper bag. It certainly wasn't a money order. And told them, don't
explain to us what happened.
Yeah. So okay. So this is one of the Intercontinental security guards. Now, remember, we heard from one in the very beginning. I think that was literally the first or second witness we heard from. That's the one that made his own recording, child, doing a whole lot, made his own recording so he could prove to his wife what he saw, right?
Right.
But then there were, of course, additional security guards because it's the Intercontinental. We both stayed there, I'm sure, Carlos. It's, quite luxurious. So one of those guys, first, it was one of Sean Combs's employees, like one of his henchmen or whatever, went to the security guard and tried to start the negotiation. Hey, Mr. Combs and his comrades will have very bad press if this leaks. We want to go ahead and secure that, and we want to make sure it's the only copy. Very important. We want to get that tape. We want to ensure that it's the only copy. We want to give you something for your troubles, okay, by way of money, and we want this to go away. Eventually, Sean Combs himself directly went and made the ask to the security guard, and they were able to come to an agreement. The agreement was $100,000 cash in exchange for the tape and signing a document that indicated that this is the only tape known to exist. So that exchange was made, and the exchange was absolutely in a brown paper bag, and Sean Combs gave the instruction as to not spend any large amounts. Again, like, I don't think we should overly rely on correlating Sean Combs and racketeering, yes or no, to Godfather and Goodfellas style mafia movies that we think about with Rico. But I would be remiss, Carlos, if I didn't say, because that's one of my favorite scenes in Goodfellas, when Robert De Niro slaps one of the little mob guys upside the head, like, what you coming in here for? Your wife got on a white mink and you out here with a brand new Cadillac. Like, are you an idiot? Like, you can't be out here, styling and profiling at that magnitude, because it's a clear indicator to the law authorities that something nefarious and illegal is afoot. So that's why you see Sean Combs tell the security guard with the $100,000 payoff, no large purchases. Don't alert the authorities. Don't bring any attention to this transaction.
Whew. Listen, the thing about this case, there's all these new revelations that comes on a daily basis. And it's one of those cases where I'm always surprised by each revelation. And what's crazy is we are just getting started. Final question for you. Based on everything as of today, how do you think the prosecution is doing so far in building their case up against?
I would give them, let me go into my teacher mode, Carlos. I would give them a solid B. And let me tell you where I'm giving the, okay, let me start with the positives. I do think they are presenting the evidence needed to get a conviction. I do. I think they are giving us foundational elements by way of Cassie's testimony, of just the horror and terror that comes with being in Sean Combs's orbit, either as an employee or as some type of personal relationship. I think then letting us hear from Cassie's mother, we're hearing his ability to obstruct justice and embezzle, not embezzle, what do you call it? Extortion. Yes, extortion. We're hearing, I think some of the most powerful testimony was from Capricorn Clark, an actual employee on the payroll, talking about being forced to do the car rides and the ride-alongs at gunpoint, to execute the literal explosion of Kid Cudi's car. Kid Cudi was important. So yes, you know, in the predicate acts, the arson, the kidnapping, the obstruction of justice, the extortion, you know, so I think they're giving what needs to be given. However, I'm taking points off Carlos, and why they're not going to get an A or even a B plus. I don't love the order of their witnesses. I think they're asking a lot of the jury because they're kind of going back and forth with foundational pieces of who this man is and how horrible of a person he was. But then you do great things like introduce the mother and Capricorn Clark and Kid Cudi, who to me best spoke to the elements of the statute. This is the criminal organization piece. These are the predicate acts that are the 35, 37 listed required for RICO. Boom, boom. Now we're on a high note. But then you bring us back to these, you know, kind of Banna or whatever type of witness, you know, back to something that's murky and convoluted and maybe works, maybe doesn't. Then we're back to Mia again. Maybe she's credible, maybe she's lying. It's kind of general. I think I would have preferred them, Carlos, give us all of these generalized witnesses at the beginning, and then boom, boom, boom. The mother, Kid Cudi, Capricorn Clark, the people that can speak to the organizational enterprise piece, the predicate acts piece, and the real criminal elements needed for them to get a guilty verdict. Also, there's something to be said for discipline. I'm not going to give them an A, Carlos, because I think they've been a little undisciplined. Here's what I mean. I think Don Richard, they could have kept. I think Mia, you know, less, we could have gotten less Mia. Maybe a few hours of questions, not a day and a half or whatever we got, you know. So I think they should have edited some of these witnesses a little better. I also totally think they should have kept those photos of Cassie and the freak-offs. Let the jury see her as a virginal, Madonna-style, impending mother of 3, beautiful, glowing, stunning wife. Let that be the optic. Don't give us a drugged out, desperate version of her. Optically, we don't need to see that. So I think there's been a little lack of discipline, and then I think the lack of order of the witnesses.
You guys heard it straight from Ebony K. Williams, and we will be back next Thursday to recap more of the trial. Ebony, thank you so much. And you can catch Ebony with TMZ, Harvey Levin, and the other amazing experts in the legal world discussing this trial as well. Thank you, Ebony, so much.
Love you, Carlos. See you next week, babe.
All right. Love you.
Raindrops.